Welcome to CARE Conversations with Clarity Financial Solutions, where through education, we move you from confusion to clarity on all topics touching retirement. Join us as we learn and grow from others' experience on entering into the next phase of life with peace of mind and conviction that you have a team of experts to help you, educate you, and let you know your unique retirement is upon you. So it's time to take a deep inhale, a slow exhale, and walk into this next phase of life confident and with clarity. Welcome, friends, to this episode of CARE Conversations with Clarity. And on this episode, we are going to start a new topic, a topic that often has people scratching their heads, and that is Social Security. So there's a lot going on with it, right? Legislation, will it be there for me? How much are my benefits going to be? When should I apply? When should I start benefit? The list goes on. So we're just going to open it up and just chat through some basics that you may know, you may not know, but now that you're walking to this next phase of life and you are starting to think about where is my income going to come from, a portion of that is going to be Social Security. One of the biggest mistakes people can possibly make is have isolation inside of their income plan. So they think I'll take money from my savings account on this month. I'm going to take money out of my IRA on this month. I'm going to take money out of my Roth. You just can't do that. And there are really impactful reasons why, tax reasons why, but also just understanding a plan, having a good concept around the who, the what, and the why of your income plan in retirement is going to create such peace of mind for you. And it's going to allow you to spend the money you need for your fixed expenses, but also for items like travel or gifts or gifting, And those are things that are really important to a lot of our clients. So I'm going to once again do a PowerPoint because it has really good information, number one. But number two, it keeps me on track. And I want you guys to share in this conversation. So thank you so much for sending us emails with letters, ideas, questions about your specific situation. It's really important. It helps us craft our messaging, but also, leaning into this next season, help kind of navigate the direction that we go on topics we discuss. As you know, we are wanting to build a community of curious consumers, and that takes some time, some education, and also some specialists. So next episode, we're actually going to have a Social Security specialist. First name is Hamilton. I'll hold his last name until next week, so you don't go Google him. He's a surprise. But he works with Financial Independence Group and travels all over the country educating people on Social Security in specific situations. So we are just laying a foundation of information today, just like we did with Medicare, just like we did with long-term care. Our goal is to lay a foundation and then build on that so you understand deeper and are able to understand the new information and thus make better and new decisions. So let me start this PowerPoint and we will get started. So clarity. That's not Social Security. That's the name of my company. So let's make Social Security clear and have some clarity about that. So this presentation is one that I do throughout my community. I do it at seminars, at libraries, at companies, different places, because it's very important. But understanding retirement income, and most importantly in this particular episode, is Social Security. So we need to understand the value of Social Security. We need to understand that, you have an income stream. And yes, I know all the news about Social Security being insolvent. Okay. Not talking about that right now. We will, but not right now. So hold on to your hats. We'll get to that topic in a little bit. But having income that you cannot outlive creates such peace of mind for people. It's one of the biggest reasons why we do income type products for a portion of someone's portfolio for their fixed lifestyle expenses in retirement. And Social Security plays a big part of that. Technically, it shouldn't be more than 40% of your income. Unfortunately, a lot of people find that it's more than that because they weren't able to save the way that they thought they were going to be able to. But guess what? Life happens. So we're going to talk about a $2,000 a month benefit. If you lived 10 years, that's $250,000, 262,793. Okay. If you live 20 years, $500,000. And if you lived 30 years, almost $1 million. And that's without cost of living adjustments. So let's just understand when the Social Security office sends you the little piece of paper that tells you exactly how much a month you're going to be getting, they don't multiply it out. And that's really important. Okay. It's not $2,000 a month. It's 2,000 times 12 times your estimated life expectancy. So 10 years, over $250,000, 20 years, over $500,000, and then 30 years, almost $1 million. That has significant value in your lifestyle. And when you see that number being almost $1 million, you don't think about it $2,000 a month, right? It has, the decision is a little bit different, a little bit more weighty when you start multiplying it out. Okay. So now we're going to talk about annual inflation adjustments. So that $2,000 a month with cost of living would be $2,483 in 10 years, $2,972, almost $3,000 in 20 years, and then over $3,500 in 30 years. So the cost of living goes up, right? We've experienced that in a significant way this past year. But just like bread and milk, things go up, right? So we have to be prepared for that, but we also, not all sources of income, some pensions don't, some veteran benefits don't. Not everything is going to have a cost of living adjustment. And who knows, Social Security may not continue with those in order to keep it in a solvency state. But right now, as things are, we do have that cost of living adjustment, and it is pretty substantial. So if you think about it, if you have a $2,000 benefit now, in 30 years, you're almost going to double that. So it's going to be $1,600 more a month. So significant, right? So a lot of people do not understand what their benefit depends on. So here's what I mean by that. Why do I get $3,200 when I'm full retirement and my neighbor gets $1,800? They like me more, maybe. I don't know. No, obviously not. There's a really complex calculation. So let's talk about two elements that your amount of income is going to depend on. The first one is how much you earned over your working career, or if you have a spouse or a former spouse that you're able to draw on, how much they made. Okay. So higher wage earners for a longer period of time are going to have higher Social Security benefits currently. The other thing is the age at which you apply. So the earliest you can apply is 62. It's going to be a reduced amount that you would receive at your full retirement. The latest that your retirement Social Security account grows is 70. So if you draw at 62, a significant reduction. If you delay and wait till 70, a significant increase. And we're going to walk through that. So this is just a lot of words, but I want you to understand, it's important, okay? At age 62, each year earnings, each year of the last 35 years, because that's what it's calculated on, the highest 35 years, okay? At 62, they are going to take those years and they are going to index them for inflation. So what you made when you were 25 is going to be indexed for present dollar as of today. The highest 35 years of earnings is going to be averaged. Okay, so they're going to average those 35 highest years of earnings. That is going to be something called average indexed monthly earnings, AIM. That amount will then be divided by three different, what's called a bend point, which is an amount. We're going to look at that. And that amount comes, whatever comes out of that, these three different, so they take the average of the highest 35 years. That amount is your average index monthly earnings. And then they're going to divide the three bend points, and whatever value that is has the title of your PIA. So your primary insurance amount. And that is the amount that an individual would receive at what's called full retirement age, or FRA. I know, lots of acronyms. We've got Social Security, SSA. We've got your AIM, right? Now we have PIA. Now we have FRA. So it's kind of like Medicare. We're always learning different languages. And then COLA, cost of living adjustment, another acronym where your benefit is increased each year based on cost of living and or inflation, depending on how you want to look at it. So this is an example of that formula. So a baby boomer, someone who was born in what we call the silver tsunami decades. So if they turn 62 in 2025, that's who we're going to look at, okay? 1963 is when this person was born. Their maximum Social Security earnings every year since 22. So we examine all of those. We take the highest 35. Their average indexed monthly earnings equals, after that calculation, $13,689. Okay? So now we take that amount and we put it through three bend points. The first bend point is $1,226. And this individual is going to get 90% of that first bend point. So $1,103.40. The second bend point is $6,165. They're going to get 32% of that number. So that's $1,972. And then for our higher wage earners that have averaged index monthly earnings over that, $6,298 times only 15% of that amount, which is $944.7. So how do they get these numbers? So if you take at the second bend point, they're going to take $1,226, and they're going to add it to the 6165. Okay. So that's how they get that 7391. They're going to subtract that by the first bend point. So the total of those two subtracted by the first, and that's how they get that second number to multiply by the 32%. So 6,165 is the total. Multiply that times 32%, and we're going to get the 1972. Right? Makes sense, clear as mud, I bet. But long story short, you never have to figure this out or calculate it, but I want you to understand where it comes from. So after they calculate that out, the primary insurance amount that you would receive at FRA, full retirement age, is $4,020.90. Okay, so that's how much someone would receive at full retirement, the 63-year-old individual who turned 62 in 2025. Okay, so let's review. I know you guys are like, please put me to sleep. Hopefully not. But highest 35 years, important, super important. Average that out. Before they average that out, they're going to index those dollars at 62 for inflation. And they're going to have highest 35, average those, get that number, exercise that number in 3 bend points. 90% of the first one, 35% of the second one, and 15% of the third one. And that's how they get your primary insurance amount, PIA, at your full retirement age, which is FRA. So there, we're done with that calculation. So after they come up with that, we have to know, I bet you're wondering, well, when is my full retirement age? Can I take my full benefit at 62? That's what everyone wants to do. Well, unfortunately, no, that is not the case. And these might change too. Legislation is being pushed that states that these might increase as well, full retirement age. But for people who were born between 1943 and 1954, 66 years old is your full retirement age. And then it grows in increments of 2 months until people that were born in 1960 or later. And that is 67 years old. That's your full retirement age. So up to this point right now, full retirement for younger people is 67. Really important to know because there are things that you could be penalized for, get reduced credits or enhanced credits on your full amount based on this number. So this number does matter. You need to know your full retirement age. So pick your birth year, find it, and then as we move through this, you'll have a better idea of what yours is. So for people who apply early, they're not going to get that full PIA because they're not yet at FRA, full retirement age. So people who retire at 62 and start their benefit, they're only going to get 70% of their full retirement age amount, right? If they at 67, 70% of that. So 30% reduction if their full retirement age is 67. If they start at 63 and their retirement age is 67, they're going to get 75% of their PIA, primary insurance amount. 25% reduction, right? 64, 80%, 20% reduction, 65, and you see how it goes. So at 67, it's the last year of their possible full retirement. They can delay, and we're going to talk about what that means to their amount. But at 67, that's their full retirement age, 100% of their benefit based on someone who turns, who's born in 1960, okay? If they delay, they get delayed credits or an increase. So let's just pretend, let's stay with the 67-year-old. So 67's full retirement. 100% of your benefit. And then after that 270, it's an 8% growth every year to that monthly amount. So once again, don't think about it as 8% of $2,000. You need to think about that annual amount multiplied out by your life expectancy, right? So a pretty big number. If you do not have a Social Security account, and what I mean by that, I know you have a Social Security number. That's not what I mean. If you do not have an SSA.gov account, you need to go online, let your fingers do the walking, www.ssa.gov, and create a username and password. It's going to take you through a lot of prompts. You're going to have codes and two-step authentication. But once you get past that, you're going to be able to find out what your amount is currently. And there are a lot of other things in there that you're going to want to review. And we're going to talk about those next. So these are 3 little areas you can go. So to obtain your Social Security statement, you've got calculators on there. It's a very helpful tool. So what are factors? The biggest question I get, right? So, or I should say one of them. Some of them is, the biggest question is, can I retire? Am I going to outlive my money? But the second is, when should I start my Social Security benefit? What's the absolute right day? Day, month, year? And I say, well, okay, the only way I can give you an accurate example is tell me when you're going to die. Because ultimately, that is how I'm going to know exactly what your benefit is going to be at its absolute highest based on the date of your death. Then I can back into the number, back into the time you're going to start. But no one knows that, right? So we have to use common logic, but also disciplined research to help navigate through that decision. And there are several things that come into play. We look at health status. So are you healthy now? What's your medical history of your family? What about life expectancy? So that's when we really talk through family history. Need for income. Do you have other sources of income right now that we can tap into, lowering your tax bracket and allowing us to do a lot of other really great planning? Or do you need that Social Security income today? And then, are you going to continue to work? If so, how much? And if so, how many hours you're going to work, or full-time or part-time, or how much you're going to make? So those are all really important decisions, and we'll talk about why. And then obviously survivor needs. And the reason why that's really important is when you're married, you have an option to you either do your benefit or half of your spouse's. Okay, so that's important. But then the second thing is, when you are married or have had a former spouse for the correct number of years, and we'll talk through that in a little bit, when one of you passes, you're left with the higher amount. So for the higher wage earner, the decision on when to claim is very important, because it not just affects them, but it also affects their surviving spouse if they are a lower wage earner. So important to know and to kind of walk through together. So here are some things to consider when you're going to apply for Social Security. Okay. When your benefit starts earlier, it stays where it is, and it stays where it is for life. So that's what it is. And then the cost of living adjustment on top of that. So obviously that's important. Your benefit may be taxed and reduced to cover Medicare premiums. So if someone says they're going to make $2,000 and that's the number on your Social Security statement, that's a gross number, not gross as in ooh, but gross as in total. And then there are deductions that come out of that. So your Medicare Part B premium is going to come out of that. Your Medicare Part D premium is going to come out of that. Your prescription drug plan could possibly come out of that, as well as taxes that, depending on how much you earn, determines how much. In planning, we can't just know what your benefit is. We have to know a lot of other things to know not how much you get, but how much you keep, right? Not how much is your benefit, but how much you actually get to utilize in your lifestyle. We don't let the earnings test, and what we're going to talk about what that is, but don't let that discourage you from working. Okay, but you have to know that if you are continuing to work and drawing benefits, you could be penalized depending on how much you make. And then delaying benefits may give surviving spouses more income, just like we were discussing. Okay, so let's talk about strategy one. Strategy one is about maximizing your benefits. Now, how are you going to know if you could improve your earnings record? I mean, obviously you can make more money continuing to work, but a huge way more people need to know how to do is review your work history. So if you go to SSA.gov, or if you don't have an account, how could you possibly know what they're making this massive calculation on? How are they coming up with this average index monthly earnings amount that they then calculate your PIA, primary insurance amount? You don't know what that is if you've never looked at it. So if I have 3 years of zero, when I know for a fact I worked during those years and paid taxes, we have a problem. Okay. So I have to examine my work history. Is it accurate? Are there missing years? And then should I continue to work more years, making more money to then increase that average indexed monthly earnings amount? Strategy two is apply for Social Security at an optimal time. And this is not where we go when we take a piece of paper and we cut it into a lot of different pieces. We throw it into a hat and we pick a number out. That's not how we maximize. We have a really awesome software that we utilize for people to plug in lots of different variables, and then based on other assets, based on financial planning techniques and methodology, we're able to determine what that is. But a lot of it depends on your income needs, both now and in the future, your life expectancy, your spouse life expectancy, and then obviously we make some choices. So even if the number comes out to be this, you may disagree with that. That's okay. It's your benefit, it's your number. The earnings test is really important to understand, because if you draw money, you draw your Social Security benefit at 62. In 2025, if you make $23,400 or over, for every $2 that you earn over that amount of $23,400, you have to pay $1 back in your benefit. Okay, so yuck, right? Like, who wants to do that? Why do that? What's the rationale? I'll tell you, I had a client who told me, and I didn't know him until he was 68, but he heard around the water cooler, get yours while you can, get your Social Security benefit while you can. If you don't, it's not going to be there. So his wife is a lower wage earner. So he draws his benefit at 62, ends up giving most of it back from 62 to his full retirement age. And now he's locked into a lower amount for the rest of his life, and so is his spouse, because the benefit that is his is the one she would keep if he predeceased her. So one decision that has a domino effect, right? Really important to understand. All right. So we're running out of time with this episode, so I want to speed up a little bit, and we'll obviously, when we talk to Hamilton next week, we'll talk more about it. But coordinating spousal benefits is a critical benefit, a critical strategy when you have been married. You can still be married to that person. You could have no longer be married to that person, but you have to consider all spousal options. And I'm telling you, it can really make a big difference depending on when you were born and depending on how, your spouse's amount of earnings. So super important to know and to do. Strategy 4. So maximizing your benefit by minimizing taxation of your benefit. So how do I do that? Well, that's a whole financial planning methodology that we go through. Minimizing taxes on Social Security. I mean, come on, everybody that I've talked to wants to minimize their taxation, or at least make it as efficient as possible. But Social Security taxation is a critical component to understand when we're talking about our tax rate in the future in retirement, because where we're pulling money from to satisfy our lifestyle needs, meaning what type of accounts, whether it's tax deferred or not, non-qualified Roth, just savings, where we take money from determines how much tax we're going to pay. And when you add half of your Social Security to that amount, to the rest of your earnings, that is going to determine, your provisional income is going to determine whether you pay 85%, up to 85% of your Social Security benefit is taxable, or up to 50%, or zero, right? So it's really an important way to determine taxation, to minimize taxation in retirement. So we look at reducing other income with tax-advantaged investments, not municipal bonds, because that's added back when they determine your provisional income, but other tax-advantaged investments. We have to anticipate tax-deferred IRAs required minimum distributions, which is going to automatically put us in a higher tax bracket, especially if we haven't done any kind of efficient Roth conversion. Convert traditional IRAs to Roth, delay Social Security, reducing the number of years that are subject to taxation, reduce expenses, pay down debt, adopt a simpler lifestyle. I mean, that's a yucky one. Who wants to do that? Or we just want to always continue to manage taxes throughout retirement. The fifth strategy is coordinating benefits with your overall retirement income plan. I could talk about that one a lot longer, but I won't, because we'll talk about it in the future. So unfortunately, we have run out of time on this episode. I have a lot more to talk about, but we'll talk about it next episode with Hamilton. I hope that you have learned something. If it's just, I didn't know that, I don't know enough about Social Security, or if it's just, I need to go on ssa.gov and create a username and password, then you're one step closer to understanding Social Security. And that's all we desire to do here, is move the needle just 1 degree at a time, putting you in a situation where you're better off than where you were before we met. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Care Conversations with Clarity. Join our Clarity Financial Solutions family, where through education and others' experience, we empower you to make retirement choices with confidence. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook, or head on over to our website and sign up for our newsletter. If you'd like to further engage with us, please don't hesitate. Just reach out, 864-987-8729. See you next time on Care Conversations with Clarity.